Welcome to Junkyard Haunts, where we turn trash into haunts. Today we're going to be making a demon door knocker. I was actually asked to make this because a local playhouse is actually putting on a play, called The Haunting of Hill House. If you guys seen the Netflix special, well, it was actually a play first. And so they needed this door knocker for their props to try to make their play look more scary. So I'm just making this in my same old-fashioned note, still using junk to actually put it all together. As you see, I just cut out a piece of cardboard to actually model all my stuff on. And I'm actually just rolling up newspaper and then using masking tape to model my door knocker. It's actually a fairly easy process. I know it can look a little complicated or anything like that, but it's just crumble up newspaper, put tape on, and try to put it in such a way that it starts creating a face out of it. If you do something you shouldn't have, I have a knife nearby and I cut it out just like I did on the nostrils there, and then just re-taped up that nostril. And if after you're all done and you look over it, you want to add more, just add more. So I'm just adding a pointier nose on it to it and just putting in some tape here and there and adding whatever I feel like is needed to make this door knocker. And masking tape is really cheap, so it's a good tape to use for this, because when we actually finish here, we're going to go through and paper mache it to actually add that strength in. Masking tape also has its negatives because it will unpeel, because it's just really cheap tape. And so that's a good reason to go through with paper mache afterwards. It will both add strength and to make sure that nothing unpeels. When you paper mache it, you just mix flour and water together and rub the paper mache onto the newspaper, and then make sure you really are pushing down into these cracks to actually make sure the 3D look comes through. On camera, it actually removes the 3D-ness when you paper mache it, but trust me, it is 3D, and paint will help bring that back out. And after it dries, or actually before it actually dried, I thought like this just needed a little bit more, so I'm actually just making some horns the same way, just crumbling up newspaper into kind of a cone shape using masking tape to make that actually sharp and pointy, and using masking tape to actually make that sharp and pointy. And since the paper mache was still wet, I still have some leftover mixture here. I actually just go ahead and paper mache it on to make sure it actually stays and to match the rest of it. To make the actual door knocker part, we're just going to do more cardboard and cut it out into a circle with a hole in the middle. I actually have a small piece of wood to actually make the door knocker part, as you can see. But to make this actually fit, I had to cut the mouth part out bigger. And that's okay, because it's just paper and tape. So it's actually pretty easy to cut. And after we cut it, we'll obviously clean it back up. But that's the great thing about paper mache, is that it's easy to add on or change things as needed. To make this door knocker round, we just wrap newspaper around it and just use masking tape to go in a circle. And of course we will go ahead and paper mache this up too for that strength, and we'll paper mache its mouth back to put that final touches on, or else that loose newspaper will just fall straight out. So I make props every Monday, so be sure to subscribe to follow along and see what awesome creations we can make. Just to add a little bit more detail to it, I actually had an old small half plastic skull that I believe I used to model my Alice in Wonderland flowers. So if you want to check that video out, I'll put a link right up on the screen for you to go check out that video. I'm gonna go add a lot more detail into this door knocker to make it look more demon in nature. Paper mache and masking tape is probably could, but it's really hard to get real nice details in. So to just add those details in, I'm using Cellu Clay, which is extremely cheap and inexpensive. I bought a huge batch of it like 2 years ago, and I'm still using that same batch because I don't use very much. But it's just almost like a paper mache clay basically. But we're going to just build up wherever we felt like it needed some more. Especially, we're going to build up its mouth. We want this door knocker to not be able to come out. So we're going to build up really big lips with this Cellu Clay so that door knocker cannot get pulled out. The clay will actually keep it into place, and we'll let it dry that way as well. To add more to that mouth, we're going to be making teeth. So I actually, in one of my old videos, made teeth this way, and I feel like it turned out pretty good by making them actually thick. So I just take an old yogurt cup and just put hot glue on it, and then just cut it out into whatever shape I needed. For these particular teeth, I wanted them to be pointy, so I actually get like a rectangle shape and then cut off the tips of it so that they're nice and pointy. And while the Cellu Clay is still wet and hasn't hardened, I just stick it straight into that clay, and then it should harden around it. And then after it's nice and dry, we're going to put a base coat on here with some black spray paint. Spray paint is really good because you'll be able to lift that door knocker up and actually get into those parts where a paintbrush would not be able to fit. So spray paint is probably pretty necessary. Now they wanted this to look like stone, so we're just going through and changing it to gray now. The black spray paint will also make it more 3D because you don't need to fill in all those little cracks, especially like those eyebrows, for example. If the gray paint doesn't get in there, it's fine because the black is good, making it look better. In fact, we're actually going to go through now and use a black wash to go back into those creases to add even more black into those spots to help bring out the detail. So a wash is just a little bit of paint and water, and you just put it on into those cracks and creases. This is where I'm focusing my attention, and then just wiping off the excess. And then to really bring this out, we just do a dry brush with a much lighter color. So I still have a gray, but I added some white in there to make it even brighter. And then with a dry brush, you just put a little bit of paint on your brush and then rub it off onto the more newspaper in this example to make sure that there's basically nothing left on this brush. And then you just lightly paint over the whole thing again, and it will only get the highlights. At this time I took it to the Playhouse, and they just wanted it to be more demonic. So now I'm going back to just add to it. This is a great example of being able to, add to the actual prop to make it even better. And for the most part, I just follow the same steps. I was just going to add some horns, and I did it the exact same way, newspaper and paper mache, and then glued it on. And then using Cellu Clay to add details into the actual horn, and to make it secure so that it actually will stay onto the door knocker. And because I had extra Cellu Clay and they wanted this thing more demonic, I just went ahead and added like an upside down cross, and then some more rings with the Cellu Clay. The problem with Cellu Clay is once you get it wet, you have to use it because it will dry and harden and never be able to be moved again. So make sure you have a plan, or only do a little bit of clay at a time and keep making more as you go along. I got help to repaint this, but I just follow the same steps as I did before. I obviously can't spray paint it, so we're just hand painting it now. and I follow the exact same steps. So I figured now's a good time to go ahead and just play some music. I'm using another YouTuber's music that he makes on his channel. Link in the description to check out his channel with all of his music. And I'll just let you listen to that. Thanks for watching that video. So I worked with the Playhouse to actually make this prop for the play. So I put a link in the description to go check out their play. It's gonna be a good one because they used my stuff in it. Don't forget to hit subscribe. We make cool props every Monday. Also, if you were making this to be louder and actually work more like a door knocker, I would suggest on the back of this to actually screw in a screw into the back with a nice round head so that we'll be able to hit against something that's more metal in shape. And most door knockers actually put a little metal plate against the door too, so when you lift it up, the screw will hit the metal plate and be a much louder clank. Wood is not that loud compared to metal, so that's what I suggest doing. I didn't make those sound effects with my mouth. That was all from that. That's how cool I made it. It makes its own sound effects.